former Springboks head coach Jake White is sounding the alarm on a trend that might just be a ticking time bomb for our beloved Springboks. In a recent Rugby Pass column, White didn't hold back his concerns about the current players getting too involved in off-field activities, and he's got some sharp words for the team to consider. The spark for White's concern? Eben'S and Siya Kolisi, two of the biggest names in South African rugby, were seen accompanying Dricus du Plessis to the octagon for his UFC title fight against Israel Adesanya. This wasn't just any event, it was in Perth, a day after the Springboks crushed the Wallabies with a 30-12 victory. While the sight of these rugby giants showing their support was a proud moment for many, White sees a potential problem brewing. After the game in Perth, social media was awash with watching Siya and Eben walking in behind Dricus du Plessis for his UFC bout. White wrote, "There's no doubt the Springboks are hot right now. They have as high a profile as they've ever had. They're mixing in celebrity circles and have massive social media followings. But here's where things take a turn. White draws a parallel between this situation and what happened with the England team after their 2003 World Cup win, led by Sir Clive Woodward. Having marketable, talented players will always be a challenge, so I'll tell you a cautionary tale. I remember hosting Sir Clive Woodward after his 2003 success with England," White shared. He came to meet our management team and presented to us talking about the 1%ers required to win a World Cup. I remember him telling me what changed post-2003 was that suddenly his players were household names. White continued, highlighting how fame outside the rugby field began to creep in. All of a sudden, they were on Strictly Come Dancing, they were on adverts, and he struggled with that. He said the reason they faltered afterwards was that rugby wasn't their number one focus. The failed 2005 British and Irish Lions tour was testament to that. The core of White's argument is clear. If the Springboks get too caught up in the limelight outside of rugby, their performance on the pitch could suffer. If you step outside the rugby bubble, sure you create the hype that makes the game bigger, but it will come at an expense elsewhere, even if it's further down the line, White warned. Now, before you think White's being a killjoy, he does admit that there's no harm in a little off-field fun occasionally. In isolation, I've got no problem with the Dricus sideshow. They were in Perth, they are friends and as proud South Africans, showing their loyalty, but it's probably not the recipe for success if done on a regular basis, he wrote. But he quickly adds a cautionary note. Put it this way, they wouldn't have done that before they'd won 2 World Cups because they weren't deemed serial winners. Once players start to forget rugby as no one, then things can quickly go south. White knows a thing or two about managing star players. He led the Springboks to World Cup glory in 2007 and had to navigate the challenges of rising fame among his squad. But the big question remains, is this a valid concern or is White being overly cautious? Is Jake White right to worry about our Springbok stars getting too caught up in the glitz and glamour? Could this be the beginning of a slippery slope, or is it just a harmless bit of fun that won't affect their game? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more in-depth analysis and the latest controversies in the rugby world.